Welcome to the Architecture Corner. We're ready for another deep dive, this time into streaming capabilities on AWS.
Yeah, specifically looking at AWS Kinesis. If you've worked with real-time data, you know the choices. Maybe Kafka, maybe Kinesis.
Exactly. And Kinesis, while powerful, it traditionally had this manual aspect, didn't it? Needing to provision
Oh,
shards.
absolutely. That was the classic Kinesis data streams model. You basically had to be a fortune teller for your traffic
Huh, right. You'd provision shards, guess the load.
and then constantly monitor it. Scale up for peaks, scale down to save cost. It was a fair bit of management overhead, especially if your traffic was unpredictable.
Which it often is. Nobody wants to be glued to capacity graphs. But there's good news, right? We're looking at an AWS tip article by Mario Bittencourt that highlights a big change.
Yes, a really significant one. AWS introduced an on-demand option for Kinesis data streams.
On demand. Okay, so what does that actually mean in practice?
It means AWS handles the shard scaling for you automatically.
Yeah.
Based on your actual traffic.
So no more fortune telling.
Pretty much. The big win is the billing model changes too. You move away from paying for provision capacity and just pay for what you actually consume, the data writes, the reads, the storage. It's designed for those variable workloads.
Okay, that sounds, well, much better. But there are always details, right? What does the source say about how this actually works? Any catches?
Good question. A few key things to keep in mind. First, the individual shards behind the scenes. They still have the same maximum read and write limits as in the provision model.
Okay, so the fundamental unit hasn't changed its capability.
Correct. And second, and this is important, records with the same partition key still go to the same shard. That logic hasn't changed.
Right. So if I have like a really hot partition key getting tons of data, that could still cause issues, even with auto-scaling.
Potentially, yes. That's a really crucial point. AWS scales the total number of shards based on the overall load. But if your data is heavily skewed to one key, that specific shard could still get overwhelmed before the overall system scales enough, or just hit its individual limit.
So partition key strategy is still very much relevant.
Absolutely. You still need to think about distributing your load, even in on-demand mode.
And the article mentions something specific about throttling, especially with rapid spikes.
Yes, this is maybe the most critical operational detail. The source points out that if your incoming traffic more than doubles its previous peak within a 15-minute period.
Doubles in 15 minutes.
Right. If it spikes that fast, you are likely to get throttled. The system needs that sort of 15-minute window to react and scale up smoothly. A sudden, massive jump beyond double the recent peak can hit limits before the scaling catches up.
Okay, wow, that's a very specific threshold to know about. So great for gradual growth or even bursts, but maybe not for like a switch being flipped causing a 10x spike instantly.
Exactly. If you know you're going to have a massive sudden surge like a big product launch or marketing event, the source actually suggests the traditional provision model might still be better in that specific case.
Because you can pre-warm it, scale it up beforehand.
Precisely. You can over-provision ahead of time to handle that known extreme spike without hitting that rapid doubling throttle condition. It's about matching the model to your traffic pattern.
That makes sense, but you're not totally locked in, are you? The article mentioned flexibility?
That's another neat feature, yeah. You can actually switch an existing stream between provisioned and on-demand modes.
Oh, really? Without downtime?
Apparently so, up to twice a day, which is great for adapting if your workload changes, or even just for trying out on-demand.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Kinesis On Demand sounds like a huge improvement for managing variable streams, taking away that manual shard juggling.
Definitely simplifies things a lot. But, as we discussed, you still need to understand those scaling behaviors. That 15-minute doubling rule is key, and you can't forget about your partition keys. Those are still vital to avoid surprises, especially if you're growing fast.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? So for you listening, how does this on-demand option change your approach? How might you design your real-time pipelines differently, especially thinking about unpredictable traffic? Definitely something to chew on.
Good question to consider.
You can find more details, including that link to Mario Bittencourt's AWS tip article in the description. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do subscribe for free to the Architecture Corner newsletter for more insights like this.